May 5th, 1943. 2:17 hours. North Atlantic, west of Ireland. Inside you, 6:38, the air is thick with diesel fumes and sweat. The boat rides low, barely 20 meters beneath the surface. Red lights glow over hunched faces. Every man listens. Oberleutnant Zursi Heinrich Schnur stands over the plotting table, one hand braced against the steel hull as it creaks under pressure. The Atlantic above them is black and endless. A convoy is somewhere ahead, slow, fat merchant ships crawling toward Liverpool. They have done this dozens of times before. The hydrophone operator lifts a finger. Schraubadrosch, multiple screws, bearing 085. Propellers, many of them. A faint smile touches Schnur's lips. A Wolfpack has already been signaled. U-boat command in Lorient would have transmitted the orders hours ago through encrypted Enigma messages. Tonight, like so many nights since 1940, the ocean belongs to them. You can almost feel the confidence in the hull itself. Since the early days of the war, men like Gunther Preen and Otto Kretschmer turned the Atlantic into a graveyard. In 1942 alone, hundreds of Allied ships burned under moonlit skies. Tankers split in half. Lifeboats drifted for days. The British called it the Second Happy Time. For the Germans, it was simply war, efficient, disciplined, victorious. Schnur gives the order. Auftauchen. The ballast tanks hiss. The submarine rises. Within seconds, U-638 breaks the surface like a dark predator. Hatches fly open. Cold Atlantic wind slams into their faces. The deck gun crew scrambles up. Somewhere on the horizon, a silhouette emerges against the faint starlight. A freighter. They have done this before. Surface at night. Close and fast. Fire torpedoes at point-blank range. Slip away before escorts can respond. But tonight feels different. There is no warning flare. No chaotic radio chatter from panicked merchant crews. Instead, the ocean hums. Then, a beam of blinding white light tears across the darkness. It pins you, 638, like an insect. Schnur freezes. That is not a merchant vessel's light. It is radar-directed. Before he can shout, star shells explode overhead. The sky turns white. The black Atlantic becomes a stage, and they're standing in the spotlight. Ow, someone whispers. A destroyer silhouette cuts through the glare. Then another. The sea erupts. Shells crash around them. Water explodes across the conning tower. Men scramble down the hatch. Alarm! Tauchen! Tauchen! The boat plunges. Inside, the red lights flicker as depth charges begin to fall. The first explosion is distant. The second closer. The third slams into the hull like a giant's fist. Tools crash to the floor. A light shatters. Someone screams. Schnur grips the periscope column as the submarine tilts violently. This isn't how it's supposed to happen. For years, U-boats hunted blind convoys protected by outdated sonar and guesswork. Now the escorts are waiting, already positioned, already searching. Another detonation. The steel groans. In the control room, the radio man stares at the Enigma machine bolted to his desk. Hours earlier, headquarters assured them the convoy was vulnerable. Minimal air cover. Standard escort screen. So how did the British know exactly where to shine that light? The depth charges stop. Silence returns, heavy, suffocating. The men wait. Then comes a new sound, a steady, mechanical ping, echoing through the hull. Active sonar. Ping, ping, ping. Each pulse feels closer. They're not being chased. They're being tracked. Above them, somewhere in the black water, Allied operators are watching glowing screens. Radar sweeping the surface. Aztec beams slicing through the depths. And thousands of miles away, in an English manor house called Bletchley Park, Mathematicians and codebreakers are turning captured Enigma keys into intelligence. The Wolfpack has sailed into a trap. Another explosion detonates almost directly overhead. The lights go out. Darkness swallows the compartment. In that instant, you can feel it. Not fear of death, but something worse. Doubt. The Atlantic, once their shield, has become transparent. Schnorr whispers into the dim, emergency glow, more to himself than to his crew. They can see us. And somewhere above, the destroyer HMS Vedette circles patiently, its operators listening for the echo of a submarine that once believed the ocean was its ally. But this is only the beginning. The ping does not stop. It follows you, 638, through the black water like a heartbeat that isn't theirs. In the control room, Oberleutnant Schnorr forces his voice to remain calm. Silent running. All unnecessary systems off. Switches click. Engines drop to a whisper. The boat settles deeper, sliding through the Atlantic at barely 3 knots. Every man moves carefully, as if sound itself has weight. Another ping. Louder. On the destroyer above, Royal Navy ASTIC operators lean over glowing dials. They no longer guess where the submarine might be. They measure it. Range, bearing, depth. The echo returns with cold precision. And they're not alone. By 1943, the Atlantic is no longer empty sky and water. It is a grid, a net. Radar sets like the British Type 271 scan the surface at night, detecting conning towers that once hid in darkness. High-frequency direction finding, Huff Duff, locks on a German radio transmissions within seconds. Every Enigma signal sent to coordinate a Wolfpack is a flare in the night. At Bletchley Park, men like Alan Turing and Dilly Knox have been reading fragments of German naval traffic. Not every message, not every day, but enough. Enough to move convoys, enough to redirect escorts, enough to prepare ambushes. Inside you, 638, none of that is visible. They only hear the consequences. Depth charges pattern incoming. The destroyer releases a new spread, not guesswork, but calculated geometry. The explosions walk toward the submarine step by step. The hull shudders. A valve bursts in the forward compartment. Seawater sprays in a thin, violent arc. A sailor clamps it shut with shaking hands. You can almost taste the metal in the air. For years, U-boat crews felt untouchable. In 1940 and 1941, convoys scattered in panic. Escorts were too few. Aircraft lacked range. The Atlantic was wide enough to hide anything. Admiral Karl Donitz built his strategy on that vastness. Wolfpacks striking from the darkness, overwhelming isolated convoys with coordinated torpedo salvos. It worked brutally, but 1943 is different. Escort carriers now sail with the convoys, small, slow flat tops like HMS Biter and USS Bogue. They launched swordfish biplanes and Wildcat fighters equipped with radar and depth charges. Aircraft that can search hundreds of square miles an hour. The sky is no longer safe. The surface is no longer safe. And beneath the waves, sonar has grown sharper. Another blast rocks you, 638. The lights flicker back on, dim and trembling. A gauge needle vibrates dangerously near the red. Depth 180 meters, someone reports. They are close to the edge of what the hull can endure. Schnorr studies the chart. He knows the doctrine. Evade, change depth, alter course unpredictably. But the destroyer mirrors them. Every maneuver is answered. Ping, ping, closer. Then something new joins the soundscape. A distant rumble overhead, not propellers, not destroyers. Aircraft. An escort carrier has joined the hunt. Inside the boat, a young machinist named Carl Weber closes his eyes for a moment. He is 20 years old. He volunteered believing the U-boat service was elite, the sharp edge of Germany's naval power. He imagined glory, medals, stories told in cafes in Hamburg. He did not imagine being buried alive in steel. Another explosion detonates, so close that the hull dents inward with a thunderous crack. Bolts rain from the ceiling. The boat lurches violently downward. For a split second, the Atlantic seems to swallow them whole. Schnorr steadies himself. His face is pale now. The confidence from a surface attack is gone. He understands what this means. The British are no longer reacting to U-boats. They are anticipating them. Somewhere, somehow, the Allies know their patrol lines, their rendezvous points, their tactics. The Wolfpack concept depends on coordination. Multiple boats converging on a single convoy after a radio report. But every transmission risks detection. Every signal can be triangulated. Every coded message can be broken. The very system that made them powerful is now betraying them. Suddenly the pings stop. Silence. Too sudden. The crew holds its breath. Have they escaped? Or is something worse coming? High above, a swordfish crew peers down at the dark water through primitive radar screens. The blip is faint but steady. They line up. Inside you, 638, Weber opens his eyes as a new sound pierces the hull. Not the rolling thunder of depth charges, but sharp metallic clatter striking the casing above. Then another. Was this DOS? Before anyone can answer, a new kind of explosion detonates directly against the hull, smaller, more precise. A hedgehog pattern. Contact fuse bombs designed to explode only on impact. No warning shockwaves. No guessing. Direct hits. The control room erupts into chaos as the bow compartment floods instantly. Water surges through twisted seams. The submarine tilts steeply downward. Schnorr grabs the voice pipe, shouting orders that vanish beneath the roar. The Atlantic, once their hunting ground, now feels mechanical. Engineered. Controlled. This is not chance. This is evolution. And you, 638, is not alone. Across May 1943, later called Black May by German crews, dozens of U-boats will vanish. 20, 30, 40 in a single month. Losses so catastrophic that even Admiral Donitz will be forced to pull his fleet from the Atlantic. But inside this sinking submarine, history is not yet written. There is only rising water, crushing pressure, and the realization spreading through steel corridors. The ocean has chosen a new master, and above them, the escorts tighten the circle. May 24th, 1943, 6:40 hours, Bay of Biscay. Dawn breaks in pale gray streaks over a restless sea. U-boat U, 3:05 surfaces to recharge batteries after a night submerged. Captain Lieutenant Herbert Janik stands on the bridge, scanning the horizon through salt-streaked binoculars. For a moment, it feels almost peaceful. Then the lookout shouts, "Flugzeug, starboard!" A silhouette cuts through the low clouds, a British Sunderland flying boat. Heavy, slow-looking, but armed. Janek doesn't hesitate. Alarm. Crash dive. The crew scrambles down the hatch as machine gun fire rips across the conning tower. Bullets spark against steel. The submarine pitches forward, ballast tanks flooding. But it's too late. The Sunderland drops depth charges before the boat fully submerges. Explosions hammer the hull at shallow depth. The shockwave slams men into bulkheads. Instruments shatter. A fuel line ruptures. Above, the aircraft circles, transmitting contact reports. Within hours, destroyers converge. This is the new Atlantic. By spring 1943, the Allies have closed the air gap, the last stretch of ocean beyond land-based air cover. Long-range liberators now patrol from Iceland and Northern Ireland. Escort carriers accompany convoys deep into mid-ocean. There is no safe corridor anymore. German crews feel it before they understand it. The Bay of Biscay, once a transit zone between French bases like Lorient and Saint-Nazaire and the open Atlantic, has become a killing ground. Aircraft patrol relentlessly. Radar detects surface submarines even at night. Lee lights, powerful searchlights mounted under bombers, snap on without warning, turning darkness into day. You can imagine the shock the first time it happened. A U-boat captain surfacing under cover of night, only to see the sky ignite above him. In Berlin, Admiral Karl Donitz studies lost reports piling on his desk. U-954 missing, U-209 sunk, U-132 gone with all hands. The numbers blur. In May alone, over 40 U-boats are destroyed. 40, each one carrying between 40 and 50 men. Entire crews erased in minutes. Donitz built his strategy on numbers. Even if some boats were lost, others would break through. Production from German shipyards increased. New type VIC boats slid into the water faster than ever. But production cannot replace experience. Veteran commanders, men hardened by years of Atlantic warfare, are disappearing. In their place are younger officers, less seasoned, facing a battlefield transformed by technology they barely understand. On U-305, Genek fights to regain control as destroyers close in. Inside the boat, oxygen grows stale. Batteries strain. Water seeps through hairline fractures in the hull. The hydrophone operator whispers, multiple screws surrounding us. They're encircled. Above, Royal Navy escorts coordinate calmly. Radar fixes the approximate position. Aztec refines it. Hedgehog mortars prepare another pattern. Communication between ships is tight, practiced, confident. The Allies are no longer defending convoys. They are conducting hunter-killer operations. Groups built specifically to track down submarines, even if no convoy is nearby. That is the shift. Before 1943, U-boats hunted shipping lanes. Now, Allied task forces hunt U-boats. In the control room, a young torpedo mechanic clutches a rosary in trembling fingers. He joined the Kriegsmarine, believing the Atlantic was vast enough to hide 100 submarines. He never imagined aircraft would find them in minutes, that destroyers would predict their maneuvers, that coded messages would betray rendezvous points. Ping. Closer. Janek orders a radical depth change. The submarine dives to 200 meters. The hull groans like an animal under strain. A hedgehog pattern detonates forward. Not random. Direct. The bow shudders violently. Lights go out. Emergency lamps flicker on, casting faces in ghostly red. Water sprays in from a cracked seam near the torpedo room. Men rush to reinforce it with wooden wedges and steel clamps. But the destroyers are patient. They know the submarine must eventually surface. Battery power drains. Air fouls. Carbon dioxide rises. Sweat and fear thicken the atmosphere. Hours pass. Then another series of explosions. Closer than before. The Atlantic pounds at the hull as if trying to crush it into silence. Across the ocean, similar scenes unfold in dozens of steel coffins. In mid-May, U-boat crews begin whispering a phrase, Schwarzermai, Black May, not an official designation. Not yet, just a feeling. The feeling that something fundamental has shifted. In Lorient, returning submarines dock with fewer faces on deck. Families notice gaps. Letters stop arriving. Command briefings grow tense. Donitz orders tactical changes. More submerged operations. Improved anti-aircraft armament, new acoustic torpedoes. But innovation takes time. The Allies already have momentum. Back inside U-305, a final explosion tears through the stern. The boat lurches sharply. Gauges spin wildly. Water floods in uncontrollably. Janek looks around the control room, at the men who trusted him, who followed him into the depths, believing in strategy, in secrecy, in superiority. Now the ocean presses in from every side. He gives the order no U-boat commander wants to speak. Prepare to surface. Is surrender to inevitability. When U-305 finally breaks the surface, battered and leaking, Royal Navy destroyers are already waiting. Guns trained, signals prepared. Some crewmen will survive. Many will not. And across the Atlantic, Admiral Donitz faces a decision that will change the course of the naval war. Withdraw and admit defeat, or continue and sacrifice what remains of the Wolfpacks. The ocean has shifted sides, and Berlin is about to realize it. May 31st, 1943. Naval High Command, Berlin. Rain taps against the tall windows of the Reichsmarine building. Inside, the air smells of tobacco and damp wool uniforms. A map of the Atlantic dominates the wall. Pins marking convoy routes, patrol lines, and reported sinkings. But the red pins, German losses, now outnumber the blue. Gross Admiral Karl Donitz stands rigid before the map, hands clasped behind his back. An officer reads the latest signal. U-584, lost with all hands. U-569, sunk after prolonged engagement. U-954, presumed destroyed. The room is silent except for the scratching of pencil on paper. 41 U-boats lost in May. 41. Donitz does the arithmetic automatically. Nearly 2,000 trained submariners gone in a single month. Crews that took months, sometimes years, to train. The strategy that once choked Britain is bleeding to death. He remembers 1940. The exhilaration of watching tonnage reports climb. Merchant ships burning off the Irish coast. Winston Churchill himself admitting that the U-boat peril was the only thing that truly frightened him. Those days feel distant now. An aide cautiously suggests the unthinkable. Suspend North Atlantic operations. The word hangs in the room. Suspend. Donitz knows what that means. It means acknowledging that Allied radar has erased night advantage. That HF/DF is triangulating every Wolfpack transmission. That Bletchley Park, though its name is unknown to him, is prying open the Kriegsmarine's encrypted secrets. He does not know how they are doing it, but he knows they are. Reports describe destroyers arriving at exact rendezvous points. Convoys rerouting hours before interception. Aircraft appearing over mid-ocean positions with unnatural precision. Coincidence no longer explains it. Technology does. For years, German commanders believed the Atlantic was too vast to control, that darkness and distance were allies, that a submarine stealth made it invisible. But invisibility has been shattered. Donitz exhales slowly. Withdraw the boats from the North Atlantic, he orders. It is not defeat, not officially. It is regrouping. But inside, he understands the decisive moment has passed. Out at sea, the consequences ripple immediately. Convoys that once sailed in fear now cross with growing confidence. Merchant sailors notice fewer torpedo wakes at dusk. Escorts still scan the horizon, but the panic of 1942 is fading. In Liverpool docks, stevedores unload American tanks, trucks, and ammunition at accelerating pace. Liberty ships arrive in numbers unthinkable a year earlier. Supplies flow into Britain, and from there toward North Africa, Italy, and soon, France. The Atlantic is no longer a barrier. It is a bridge. Yet not every U-boat vanishes from the ocean. Some remain. Some experiment with new tactics, new technologies. In German shipyards, engineers rush to deploy improved radar detectors like Metox and later Naxos, devices meant to warn crews when Allied radar sweeps the surface. Acoustic torpedoes are developed to home in on escort propellers. Snorkels are tested, allowing submarines to run diesel engines while submerged. Innovation, born of desperation. But there is a cruel irony. Every technological leap by Germany is answered faster by the Allies. Radar frequencies shift. Countermeasures are introduced. Escort carriers multiply. Air patrols extend farther. The learning curve favors industry, and the Allies have more of it. Summer in 1943, a U-boat captain writes a letter home before departure from St. Nazaire. He does not mention fear. He mentions duty. But between the lines, there is something new, uncertainty. He knows the statistics. Crews talk. They count empty bunks at the officers' mess. They notice how many boats fail to return. You can feel the psychological shift. Before, they hunted. Now, they hope merely to survive. September 1943. North Atlantic again. A lone U-boat attempts to intercept a convoy. The captain avoids radio transmissions to escape HF/DF detection. He relies solely on visual contact. He never sees the aircraft until the radar-guided lee light snaps on. For a split second, night turns white. He understands instantly. There is nowhere left to hide. Depth charges follow. The pattern repeats. By the end of 1943, the Atlantic campaign has transformed entirely. Allied shipbuilding outpaces losses dramatically. Escort tactics are refined into an art. Submarines that once dictated tempo are reduced to isolated threats. The hunters became the hunted, and the ocean, that endless gray expanse, no longer belongs to Germany. But this story does not end with numbers on chart. It ends with men. Men trapped in steel hulls, diving deeper than design limits, listening to sonar pings echo through darkness. Men who once believed technology and courage made them masters of the sea. Men who learned, too late, that the war had outgrown them. And beneath the Atlantic surface, thousands of wrecks now rest in silence. Steel graves scattered across cold depths. The ocean did not change its nature, but the war changed the ocean.